Hi there, my name is Tim Benjamin, and I'm the guy behind the Fear of Flying School. Let me ask you a question. Is your fear of flying undermining your quality of life? For example, when you jet away on a vacation, do you spend the whole time worrying about the next flight? Or even worse, are you avoiding travel to places you'd love to visit because you're simply too terrified to even get on a plane? If either of these sound like you, I know exactly how you feel, because I was in your shoes for years. Now, as you can probably guess by my accent, I originally come from Australia, a vast country where flying's an essential part of life. But unfortunately for me, I hated flying from when I was a kid, and by the time I was a teenager, I'd spend weeks worrying about an upcoming flight. Then things got even worse, because in my mid-20s, I started having panic attacks on planes. In fact, every time I stepped on an aircraft, I was convinced I was going to die. And that was before we'd even taken off. Anyway, to cut a long story short, things got so bad that I stopped flying altogether. Well, that got rid of one problem, but it gave rise to two even bigger ones. Firstly, I now had to travel massive distances by land. And as luck would have it, I was working in Sydney, which is located on the opposite side of the country from where my family lived, in a place called Perth. And whether you drive or take the train, travelling from Sydney to Perth takes 5 days. And that's one way. The other big problem was feeling like a failure. After all, I was an ambitious young guy with a great career, but not being able to fly made me feel like, well, one of life's losers. I won't go into the detail of that now, but suffice to say that after 2.5 years of not flying, I decided that the life I wanted simply wasn't possible without happily flying on a regular basis. That's when I enrolled in a fear of flying course run by a local airline. One evening a week for about 8 weeks, I attended a course at Sydney Airport where pilots and other aviation experts explained every element of air travel. And besides addressing things like how a plane stays in the air, they also walked us through the hundreds of other things that worry nervous flyers. Like, what happens if an engine fails on takeoff? Can a plane survive violent turbulence? And is it more dangerous to fly at night? We also learnt simple but powerful relaxation techniques. Now, you might be wondering what the purpose of all this learning was. After all, even people who are terrified of flying have seen all the stats about how safe it is. Well, it turns out that the way you conquer a fear of flying is to understand in detail how a flight works from start to finish. Because once you're armed with that knowledge, you're able to use it to stay calm when you encounter the things that make you fearful. For example, take turbulence. If you understand what causes it and how a plane and its flight crew respond, you'll be able to reposition turbulence in your mind as the mundane thing it actually is, rather than something life-threatening. It was thanks to this newfound knowledge that on the last day of the course I took, I was able to get on a jet for the first time in 2.5 years and do 2 commercial flights on the one day. Now, that life-changing day was 16 years ago, and since then I've been on hundreds of flights, and every time I've successfully used those techniques to further reduce my fears. Today, not only do I enjoy flying, but more importantly, I cherish the way that killing off my fear has transformed my life. For example, it's allowed me to regularly travel all over the world for both work and pleasure. In fact, I now live in London, a 24-hour flight away from Sydney, and I've flown that route so often in the past 14 years, I've literally lost count of how many times I've done it. Which brings me back to you and my new Fear of Flying School. The purpose of my web-based school is to give you access to the same techniques that I've used without the inconvenience and cost of physically attending a class. So how does it work? Well, it's simple really. When you join me at the Fear of Flying School, you're going to have access to dozens and dozens of in-depth video courses presented by experts in aviation and psychology. For example, you'll hear directly from senior pilots, aircraft engineers, air traffic controllers, flight dispatchers, flight attendants, plus many, many more. Together, the entire library of courses will offer easy-to-understand information that answers the huge number of questions and concerns that worry people who hate flying. And unlike a traditional class, you'll be able to watch all of the videos over and over again so that you don't miss a thing. Even better, you'll be able to download everything to your phone, tablet and PC, which means you can watch them anywhere and anytime, including on your next flight. Right now, we're putting the finishing touches to the Fear of Flying School program before it goes live in a few weeks' time. But here's something you need to know. Initially, I'm only going to give 100 people access to the program. Why? Because I want everyone who joins the Fear of Flying School to be able to interact with me and the aviation experts who lead our courses. Keeping the number of users down will ensure everyone can do that. So to make sure you don't miss out, leave me your email address right now and I'll shoot you an email the second we're open for business. And don't worry about spam. I promise not to spam you or to hand your email to anyone else. So, if you're serious about getting over your fear of flying and moving ahead with your life, please leave your email address right now and I'll be in touch with you the moment the Fear of Flying School launches. Good luck with beating your fear. I know you can do it.